Ladies and gentlemen, a good afternoon to all of you. It's a great privilege for all of us at the International Peace Institute to be hosting another round of our Global Leadership Series. And this time it gives me a special sense of privilege to welcome His Excellency Dr. Ahmed Awad Bin Mubarak, the Foreign Minister of the Government of Yemen, to take part in this series. Dr. Ahmed is an official of the Yemeni government who is well known to me personally, and I am delighted to be seeing him here today. So it gives me a great sense of pleasure to invite you to speak about a situation in Yemen which is not filled with pleasure. It's a country, a dear country, that faces enormous obstacles, but hopefully there's some hope also that we can entertain. So, Your Excellency, please, I give you the floor, and then we will have a discussion afterwards.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. My brother Zeid bin Ra'ad, distinguished guest, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to be before you today at the International Peace Institute, an establishment where making peace is at the heart of every thought, dialogue, and action. I'm here to share with you some of the developments, political development, economical development, humanitarian issues took place in my country. Also listening carefully to your questions, challenging questions, or also your advices. No doubt, Yemen it's in the age of severe crisis, collapsing economy, humanitarian catastrophe. So many challenges in our plate. But also, there are a lot of opportunities in Yemen. A lot of changes, a lot of new dynamics. Few months ago, we were full of hope that we are in a momentum where peace is coming soon. And we thought that if we seize this momentum, maybe it will be a chance to start tackling all the challenges that we have. No doubt, the peace process in Yemen will take a long time. And we have always in Yemen to be patient and passionate. But now the situation is more difficult. As I mentioned earlier, there were new dynamics. It was the new administration, Biden administration, whom they came and they put Yemen in the top of their priorities. They put all their energy. They appointed a new envoy, Tim Linder King, whom he's very knowledgeable about the case in Yemen. There were a very practical UN proposal, the 4 elements, and I will come to this in details. The new dynamics, I mean, with Iran, with all the positive signal about some initiatives took place in Baghdad, and we thought that it might, bring some positive pieces to the picture in Yemen. And now, these days, we are talking about also a new envoy, Mr. Hans, who will get all our support, as we did with all the former envoys. But also, we have a lot of challenges. Easily, I mean, we can name it. In the top, I mean, the ideology of this militia. Their belief that they have divine right to rule Yemen. Their supporter, the Iranian regime, especially now with the new with the Raisi regime. I mean, we used to deal with Zarif and all his diplomacy, soft diplomacy. But now you have a senior officer at the Revolutionary Guard, whom the new foreign ministers, in the top of his priorities, he mentioned that he gonna support the resistance movement in our region. which means Houthis. So this is a new factor. The military escalation started February 2020, trying to capture Marib. And this is big concern, not just for Yemen, but also for the entire world. You know, Marib used to be a very small city, hosting just 350,000 Yemeni citizens. Now, more than 4 million, not less than 2 million of them IDPs. Yemenis managed to manage their hope and always find a safe haven. So whenever they face dangerous or challenges in a place, so they escaped and they found another place, as it happened for those who used to live in the areas controlled by the militias. Now they are enjoying some security in Marib. So if the Houthis captured Marib, la qadr Allah, and that will not happen inshallah, this will be a real disaster. This will change totally the political and the military and the humanitarian scene. Yet the entire world, no one is suffering from a refugee problem, because yet Yemenis are very rooted. This is one, but secondly, they managed to do their issues inside Yemen. But if they lose this last heaven, then we can imagine what will be the scene. So there are many pieces, many elements. We consider it as a positive new dynamics, but also there are many dynamics. And we have also our experience from the previous round of talks. You know that we had several round talks. We had 2 in Geneva. We have 1 in BL. We have 1 long one, very intensive one in Kuwait, more than 100 days. We have lately, the redeployment agreement in Stockholm. And always after each round of talks, after each agreement, we celebrate it. But when it comes to the implementation, unfortunately, literally sometimes zero implementation, as we had, for example, in the Stockholm agreement. So I think we have to learn from that, and being more process or more result oriented, more guarantee oriented than just process oriented. And this is, I think, something we have to pay more attention to it. with the new special envoy. I mentioned earlier that few months ago, our Saudi brothers, they initiated a proposal, 4 elements. It's the same, the UN proposal, starting with the immediate comprehensive ceasefire, reopening Sana'a airport, which we already proposed that in Stockholm Houthis reviews, lifting some of the restriction or some of the regulation in Hodeidah port, which will easiest the situation in Hodeidah, and the resumption of political talks, again returning back to the table. But unfortunately, Houthis, their first response was very negative. Then again, our Omani brothers, they stepped in and they tried to mediate and try to use all the leverage that they have, the platform that they provide to all Yemeni parties. They tried to make some penetration, some breakthrough, yet they didn't succeed in this mission. Now with the new special envoy, now there is a lot of hope. He said he don't want to be rush, so he want to spend more time studying all the previous practice, talk with all the Yemeni parties, spend more time inside Yemen. Our advice to him always is to keep the parameters of the Yemeni, the foundation, the main foundation for any solution in Yemen, which is the Security Council resolution, the NDC outcomes, and before that the GCC initiatives and its mechanism. I think the entire world has to start dealing with the roots of the problem. not with the symptoms of the problem, I mean the consequences of the problem, because sometimes tackling the situation in Yemen just from humanitarian perspective and ignoring the other angles, it will not help. Yes, there is immediate needs, and we have to address all these kind of needs. But this is in the short term. But in the mid and long term, I think it's the time to adopt a new approach, more integral, more comprehensive approach, dealing with all the angles, all the perspectives of the Yemeni issues. We appreciate, I mean, the UN efforts, the international community commitment toward peace. With no hesitation, we will support the new envoy as we did with all the envoys before him. Yemeni government proved that. We will facilitate all his work inside Yemen, and we are looking forward to work with him closely. I will stop here. Leave it to you, Prince Zeid, and I will be more than happy and more than ready to exchange thoughts and respond to your challenging questions. And I'm prepared for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for providing those remarks. So let's go through some of the points and then also some of your reflections building on what you said. If I can begin, first of all, you mentioned, of course, the changes in 2021 and that there was some hope earlier in the summer with the very active initiatives by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and of course Oman also was, the Sultanate of Oman was also very active. And we see now what seems to be quite a determined push by the Houthis in the areas that you spoke about. And they have strategic objectives in mind. So given what you were saying, and that there is a broad desire to see this war end, are you optimistic that they are ready to speak or not? I think you feel you want to be optimistic, but probably deep down you realize that they have strategic objectives they want to achieve. And so perhaps my question is just that. Are you optimistic or not so optimistic about where we are now?
Well, I'm an optimistic person by nature. And I mentioned in Yemen you cannot work without patience and passion. And always, I mean, we have to see certain hope in the end of the tunnel. So situation is difficult in Yemen. We dealt with the Houthis since, I was Secretary General of the National Dialogue. And the Houthis were part of this national dialogue, and they were even overrepresented during this process. No doubt, the ideology itself, this is the hard part of everything. The Houthis, during the national dialogue, we dealt with some politicians, some people with some liberal background, and they were, and those who are, by the way, now those who are meeting with most of the international players. So they just see this part of Houthis as we did before. But the hardcore of the movement, those who believe that they have divine right, this is the real problem that always, whenever we reach or we became close to reach, settlement, those they jump and they, sabotage the whole process. So this is one of the challenges. I think if we succeeded to make, something regarding this point, I think that will, make it closer for us. The situation, no doubt, the challenge is not now that we have. It's more than the opportunities and the hope that, no doubt. If we make this calculation, we have to stop. But we don't have to stop. Zeid, in December, late December 2020, the entire after the formation of the new government, we returned back to Eden. The entire government, and we were in the same plane. And Houthis that day they targeted us. They targeted our plane at the Aden airport. They were aiming to kill everyone. الحمد لله we managed يعني يعني بالسلامة يعني nothing happened. 30 injured and killed, but none of the ministers. My first response after this attack was that we will continue, working to achieve peace, because those people, the hardliner, they want to stop this process, and we don't have other options, because we believe that there is no military solution in Yemen. The only way that we have to sit on the table, and we have to discuss all the real issues, how we can live together as Yemenis. And Houthis always are most welcomed to join, the table, and to be part of the future of Yemen, with just one condition. One simple condition: they have to respect the constitutions. They have to respect that all Yemenis are equal. They don't have any divar right. They don't have, any privilege, or that they can impose the Iranian experience or Iranian model on Yemenis. This will not be acceptable by all Yemenis. So based on that, I will keep being optimistic.
The other day at IPI, we had a series of discussions on the broader dynamics, and part of the discussion focused on the Baghdad summit at the end of August as potentially being the start of a process that will ease tensions, potentially, in a number of areas around the Arab world, and potentially also in Yemen. Do you share that view? Do you look at Baghdad, and we understand it will be a continuous process, could offer something of help to the UN and to the Special Envoy and to you?
No doubt. Such dialogue will ease the tension in our region, but it will not solve the problem in Yemen, because in Yemen the problem itself, it's internal factors. The regional factors, if we can cool down these factors, for sure, it will pave the road for getting all the parties to the table, and we welcome that. So we want to see breakthrough in these issues. But that this is not the first time we had that, this kind of communication took place. It happened before that. Yet we didn't see any reflection on the ground. But we hope if that will lead to eases the situation, the tension in the region, and not just in Yemen, but everywhere. That would be good. And Iran is heavily engaging in many capitals. Some of them very complicated. Some of them they consider it as a part of their national security. Yemen, it might be a good place if Iran want to show the international world that they change their behavior in the region. If they want to, express that, they have new policy. In our region, we always accuse Iran that they have expansionist, plan or strategy in our region. So, if they want to challenge that, Yemen, it might be the good place. Although we know that Iran want to control, Bab al-Mandab, because now they are in Hormuz Strait, and Yemen, also Bab al-Mandab. That will give them, huge leverage. This more than 70% of the oil, petroleum products. Passing this passage.
And of course, they would seem to also have designs on the installations at Jannah, the oil installations. If you could, Your Excellency, explain to our viewers, I think many will know Yemen very well, some will not, how it is and why it is that the four-point peace plan is structured in the way it is. And here I have to be cautious, because in the case of Afghanistan, what we saw is a process where there was negotiation and fighting at the same time. With Yemen, I think there seems to be broad agreement that the fighting has to stop, and then certain things will happen or not happen. Perhaps you could explain to us why the structure is in this way. Because of course, I mean, when looking at Afghanistan, didn't work either very well, of course, for the Afghan government at the time. But when looking at Yemen, why it's like this, and if you could explain to those who don't know Yemen so well, why is it that the Houthis are so insistent on rejecting the 4-point plan? What is it that they want to separate, of course, the airport and Hodeidah from the... But can you give what your understanding of their strategy is?
First of all, I mean, we have to realize that in Yemen, we have already a roadmap. It's not like Syria, it's not like Libya, it's not similar to Afghanistan. In Yemen, I mean, we had very comprehensive national dialogue.
I remember.
Yeah, and we discussed almost everything. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel in Yemen. In Yemen, maybe there are some articles, some chapters need to be revised, and we are open to do this. But we spent 2 years almost in this national dialogue. Then we drafted already constitution, and we were that close.
Just to remind our viewers, you were in charge of the constitutional provisions.
I was Secretary General of the National Dialogue. Also, I was in charge of of the constitution. And they have been kidnapped by the militias. I was in my way to submit the first, the very progressive constitutions to the General Assembly, and Houthis at that time, they want to stop this process, so they kidnapped me to stop this process. So in Yemen, the foundation is already there. I mean, even also add to that, I mean, in the 4 or 5 round of talks, especially in Kuwait. In Kuwait, we spent 100 days, and we discussed in details almost all the political challenges that we have, the formation of unity government, ensuring the participation of Houthis to this government, the security challenges and how we will deal with the challenges, the military challenges. So everything were discussed during that. So we have heritage of roadmaps, agreements, talks. And we were always discussing, the comprehensive political settlement, and also what we call the confidence building measurement. And always we talk about exchange of prisoners. We talk about free access for humanitarian, aids and INGOs having free access to everywhere. We were always discussing, lifting this, the siege, the siege from Taz, which is the most populated governorate in Yemen. Hodeidah always also Hodeidah port and Hodeidah city, and in Stockholm, Hodeidah port and city was the main file that discussed during. So we went through this process. In Stockholm, we discussed Hodeidah, Taz, and exchange of prisoner. Unfortunately, Taz, zero implementation, nothing. Regarding the prisoner, some success, happened, but then Houthis became even more aggressive. In Hodeidah, unfortunately, the situation now is much worse than before. Now there is a claim by the Houthis that there is blockade in Yemen. And I think we have to discuss these issues. I'm 100%, confident there is no economical blockade in Yemen. If we review the reports of UNIVIM, which is the UN mechanism, we will see that in terms of food, medicine, commercial commodities, there is a certain flow according to the mechanism. Fine, I mean. People, they are not getting food, they are suffering because there is no salary, because of the deterioration of Yemeni Riyal, the value of Yemeni Riyal, because of the looting of aids, because of many reasons, okay? We have a problem because we applied some regulation on, importing fuel. So this is the main issues. So Houthis always said, well, we will not come to the table until you first, deal with these issues, which is the embargo, stop the aggression, and for them, the conflict started in March when the Saudi coalition started the airstrike in Sana'a, not in September 2014 when they start attacking the cities and captured the capital. Then discussing the ceasefire, then go to the table. For us, we said, well, these four elements, and by the way, the four elements, especially the first two elements, addressing their concern, not our concern. But always we said, well, any compromises, any things that we can provide is not for the Houthis, it's for our people. So if we can do anything that will ease the condition, on the ground for our people, we will do it. So we said, well, we are ready to discuss these four elements as a package. And when it will come to the implementation, we are ready we are flexible about the sequence but they refuse. They don't want that. They don't want to discuss anything relating to the ceasefire. Why? Because they are still believe that they can gain some military victory. They don't want to come to the table before capturing Marib because they want to have upper hands in the process. And we know that if they succeeded in Marib, they will not stop in Marib. They will go to Shabwa and Hadramaut as they are trying now to do this. So are Houthi ready for peace? I will say no.
No.
Are just Houthis.
So having said that, though, I think most analysts would agree with you. It's difficult to be optimistic at this point. One would expect that we need to wait for a few more weeks to see what happens and reach a point where they think that now we have to sit and begin to talk.
Yeah, but look, Zeid, now since February 2020, every week they announced that next Friday they're gonna celebrate it in Marib, and they are losing. The volume of their losses is huge. Can they keep affording that? I'm not sure that sure. So, well, if they do logical math, logical calculation, if I'm in their shoes, I will come to the table. But the problem again, that will lead us again to talk about the ideology, because usually, dealing with such extremist, ideology, usually they don't do this logical math or calculation. So it's always something related to divine, power. So this is the real problem. While I'm saying that, I don't want to lose hope. This is challenges, and we have to deal with these challenges. But also, there are so many other elements that we have. The international committee still have a lot of cards. They didn't use it yet. They can put more pressure. The Houthis. There are some files where we can succeed, and we can make progress. Safar, for example, tanker. One of the issues that the international committee should act immediately, because this will be a global environmental disaster. I think we can deal with some low-hanging fruit, make some quick wins in it, and that maybe it will be the road for more progress.
When listening to Your Excellency, the challenges that you just spoke of earlier, of course, it is noticeable to everyone that in the context of Yemen, it's not simply also, I shouldn't say simply, it's not that there is a condition essentially of civil war with a rebel group that has challenged the government. And in my previous position, we tried to be fair. I was criticized by all sides about where the casualties came from. But also, we have a very difficult humanitarian situation. You've spoken to it publicly in many fora. 5 million people at risk of famine, potentially 19 million people. And then on top of this, the coronavirus and COVID. How has been the reaction by the international community, you feel, to the humanitarian conditions in Yemen? And are you satisfied with the strength of this reaction, or do you feel more can be done? And as you said to me earlier, and that all these issues are connected in one way. Yemen is not a humanitarian crisis on its own. There's a very serious political, of course, military dimension as well. But if you can give me some indication of how and whether you're satisfied by the reactions by the international community.
We are always appreciative. By all the efforts by the international community and the UN agencies and the NGOs, we are always appreciative. I think still, we need to do more. There are many areas, where we can put more energy and more efforts. And by partnership with all those, partner, allies, we can together improve the situation. But as I just mentioned, this is a man-made disaster. This is a man-made crisis. This is not caused by natural disaster. So if we didn't solve the roots of the problem and tackle the political issues, we will keep having this. We cannot imagine or expect the international community for years keep feeding 22 millions. Yemen is still in the radar. But the international community will reach a stage of fatigue, and the Yemen will be forgotten, and we don't want to be forgotten. Add to that, what's happening now in Afghanistan. This is a new challenge. But again, it's the time to adopt a new integral, comprehensive approach dealing with the situation in Yemen, not just with the symptoms, but with the causes of the problem. Also, balancing between the reliefs and the developmental projects, which we need in Yemen. In the mid and long term, more, development-oriented projects, more than just food baskets. What we need in Yemen, strengthening the national institutions. We can understand in 2015, 2016, the UN agencies and many of the NGOs, they took the lead, in different aspects, in the humanitarian operation in Yemen. But they cannot do this forever. It's the time to start, strengthening the capacity of the national institution. We don't want what happened in Afghanistan to be repeated again in Yemen. So I think again I will say that we are very appreciative, but I think we have to all work more and find more areas that we can improve the situation.
Could I ask Your Excellency to comment on the situation in the southern governorates? We see sort of instability, of course, there. What's your opinion? If you could share with our viewers the ill ease, perhaps the tensions that sort of continue to emerge, but the situation in the southern governorates, if you could touch on the SDC.
Well, in general, there is South issues, and that was even before this war, and it has been discussed during the national dialogue. And
if you could give just some background, just a little bit.
Yemen, it was two countries, two parts, south and north. Then unification took place in 19. Then we had in 1994 a civil war. So Saleh regime, defeat his partner, the socialist at that time. And since then, we start having this kind of grievances at the south. People start, voicing their demands, complaining about injustice in many areas. That created, a lot of problems and created a lot of challenges. The social fabric of Yemenis start to have some cracks, here and there, which unfortunately now even more. During the national dialogue, and then the Hirak in 2017, they start, striking that, and they start, challenging the old regime, asking for, fair distribution of power and wealth. But during the national dialogue, that was the main issues that we discussed. And it consumed all our efforts, and it took most of the energy of the national dialogue. One of the main outcomes of the national dialogue was that Yemen cannot be run anymore as a central state, and we agreed on federalism, federal state, which each region will enjoy a certain limit of the decentralization. So we have 2 regions at the south and 4 regions at the north. So that was the proposal, and that what Houthis and the old regime at that time challenged, and they staged the coup against this proposal. Then when Houthis invented the south, mainly Aden, that even make it even worse, and it became more complicated. Now, we signed with SCC Riyadh agreement. We agreed on a certain acquisition of power sharing, and we implemented the political part of this agreement. We formed the political competencies government. SCC were represented in five seats, so just SCC, but the Southerners in general, they have 50% of the cabinet. So when you talk about the South, Southerners governates, those who have this kind of problem is just Aden, Yafa, Aden, Dala, and Lahj. So just 3. But the majority of the Southern governorates enjoy, stability. If you are talking about Shabwa, Hadramaut, Mahra, and the rest. So we have some complications in Aden. Yet 2/3 of the government, of the current government, functioning from Aden, including all the parties. I mean, not just the SCC ministers. Now there are a lot of progress made. We are expecting very soon to see the entire government again, functioning from Aden, and I think this is one of the main issues that we have to focus on, because having a functioning government serving the entire Yemeni people from their capital, I mean, this is one of the positive dynamics that we have, and we have to combine it with the other factors.
When I listen to Your Excellency, one cannot help sometimes, and when looking at a country like Yemen, and for any Arab, Yemen is almost the soul, it's the origin, it's the purest of Arab societies. And yet over the course of so many years, decades, it was not the repository of the sort of support that the Arab countries should have given to Yemen from a development point of view. In terms of the talent, the history, it's very deep. I think what's painful for us is that when you look back in recent times, and there will be a time for this, once there is a comprehensive agreement in place, and the country will return to something like normal, and this is, of course, the hope of everyone, with different arrangements, perhaps negotiated by all sides. But we will look at decisions in the past which we may learn from and regret. I mean, you mentioned this earlier in private, and when I was serving on the Security Council, and there was a draft resolution, I think, presented by one of the permanent members to impose punitive sanctions on Ali Abdullah Saleh, who was disrupting the very process that you were leading. And yet I was the Arab representative in the Security Council, and received many calls from Arab countries that we should not be doing this and supporting. Of course, now I think we all regret, because we saw what happened to Ali Abdullah Saleh later, and how he joined the rebellion, essentially. So when looking at a country that you have devoted your life to, and you think of the missed opportunities, do you feel that as we hopefully in the next phase reach a point where we might have an agreement, that we won't repeat some of these mistakes again, that we will have a good strategic view of how to proceed? Or are we, as Arabs, unfortunately, going to have to spend a lot of time regretting decisions we've taken in the past?
Well, Yemen is a very bright young nation, and we believe, there is a lot of potential in Yemen,
No.
and I can see this. The situation in Yemen always was problem with the system, even before this war. If you look back, we were always suffer from having weak economy because of the weak administration that we have. During the national dialogue, we dreamed a lot, and we draw. At that time, the lines of the new Yemen civil state, where for the first time, civil society, women, young people will have platform and will have a say, and the plan is there. Plan is there, and always we have this fighting in Yemen, within Yemen, between the future and the traditional power, whom they want to get us to still living in the past. People are now talking about what happened 1,400 years ago, and they want to reflect it in our future. It's difficult. It's not that easy, especially after, for the first time that we have this kind of cracks in our social fabric. For the first time in Yemen, for example, that we don't have the issue of Sunni Shia. We never have that. 5 years ago, you will not find any Yemeni identify himself based on a sectarian, background at all. Unfortunately, now it became an issue in Yemen. So we have always these questions. How we can maintain the Yemeni social fabric, because without that, we cannot talk about the future of Yemen. How we can live all together again. We have the faith to do this, and we are still determined to do this. And I believe personally that elements are there, but it is not that easy. First, I think we have to reach a stage where we will enjoy peace. Then again, sitting at the table and discussing the future of Yemen, where the Yemen have to be again a strong front in the Arab Peninsula. I think we have been left. If our brothers held us a long time ago, we will not be in this situation. And also, I think we made, as Yemenis, a lot of mistakes, and we have to learn from these mistakes. If we didn't learn from all what happened to us during the last 10 years at least, that I think would be historical mistakes. We always repeated that Prophet Muhammad said, "Al-hikmatu yamaniyah," wisdom is Yemenite. So inshallah, we will try to apply this hadith.
So I'm going to make you feel very uncomfortable now.
Please.
You served as Yemen's permanent representative at the UN, and I served my own country. When looking back over the last few years, do you feel that both the Arab League and the UN have let Yemen down? Do you feel that these organizations did not live up to what would have been the expectation of the Yemeni people to do more or to end the violence that exists?
Yeah, always.
It's a difficult question.
It is. But always I ask myself these questions. Where we made mistakes, where we made historical mistakes. During this journey, at least I was part of the revolution in 2011. Then the national dialogue. I participated in all the political talks, and I think we made historical mistakes. The international community, GCC, Arab League, they came with assumption when they ensured Saleh immunity that when he leaving the office means leaving the power structure. This is might in Sweden but not in the Arab world, and specifically not in Yemen. So that was one of the mistakes. The entire world, they put all their attention, all their efforts, energy, resources, just designing and supporting the political process, but they didn't pay the same attention to the real life. I mean, the day-to-day life of Yemenis. I mean, security, food, security, health system. So Yemenis, we keep raising the expectation of Yemenis talking about the future. And everyone was, want to get the credit of this very well-designed political process every month, every 2 months, Security Council resolution. But none of those, intervention dealt with the issues, with the real. So, and when we reach the stage when we will start the implementation of this, it was that easy for the old regime and for Houthis, to sabotage and to crash the whole project. So that also one of the many mistakes. Also, we maximize the expectation, about the international rule in Yemen. So, and at the end, we will not get the Security Council, they will not they don't have teeth, so they will not come, boots in the ground. They will not put boots in the ground in Yemen. So internally, we didn't give the internal factors the same attention as we did with the international factors. So. Yes, we lost a lot of opportunities, and we made a lot of mistakes. We as Yemenis, our brothers at the region and the international community. And my fear that we are repeating the same mistakes now. Now, for example, there are 3 main elements. If we didn't pay the same attention to them, I think this would be the real disaster. One is defending Marib, because if Marib fall, will change totally and dramatically the whole scene. So this has to be top priority. Having functioning government in the ground, serving the Yemeni people, and supporting the Yemeni economy. This is quite important, because because now everyone is waiting until we reach peace, then they will start helping us economy. I'm afraid that we will not reach this point.
No.
So the entire world, especially our brother, they have to act immediately, supporting the Yemeni economy and helping the Yemeni government to support their people, to be able to be strong partners, to sit on the table with the Houthis.
No.
So if we lose that, Thirdly, in the political path, we don't have, again, to repeat the same mistakes. We have to be more result guarantee oriented, more than just process oriented. So we enjoyed a lot of agreements, but when it comes to the implementation, usually sometimes zero implementation.
Let's assume at some stage there can be a comprehensive agreement negotiated and implemented. Given the amount of bloodshed, do you think this is a conflict now that has produced a condition where it will be difficult to forgive each other, essentially? In the Arab world, we have, especially Ahmed Badu, we have a way to sort out the injury we cause each other. But sometimes if it doesn't work, especially as we say the blood issues and provide them, it can go for generations. Is this a conflict which has been so bitter? Is it beyond human compassion? We might have an agreement, we might have it in place, we might have power sharing, we might have an all-inclusive government, but there will be lingering hatreds or not. Could there be, do you think, a Truth and Reconciliation Commission at some stage. The Arab world is not good at this. We see it in other parts of the world, easily done. We are not good with how these mechanisms come. Is this something that could be thought of?
During the national dialogue, that was one of the issues. I mean, we had during the national dialogue a special committee dealing with reconciliation and transitional justice. In Yemen, we had tales of civil war and conflicts, a lot of victims. So we went through this in details. We never had similar situation. I mean, what we are facing now with the Houthis, we never had that in our. But in principle, I mean, we already discussed the framework of that. We have always to be ready for forgiveness. I'm saying this again, despite of all what Houthis did to the Yemenis. I mean, they killed us, they bombed our homes. If they accepted, to be equal citizens as the rest of Yemenis, we are still offering them the forgiveness. This is what we can. Otherwise, I think we will keep fighting each other, and every day we are losing. I mean, every day. What concerns me, not just the killing. I mean, which every life matter for us, but the social fabric. That Houthis just last summer, they announced that they recruited 60,000 child in their summer courses, and they prepared them to send them to the front line. But if I share with you which type of materials that they are planting in the minds of our kids, you will fear. I mean, this is something. Even if the war stops tomorrow, this is something will stay with us generation to come. So every day of war, I mean, make it more difficult for us to live together. So yes, the framework is there. Still, we are offering forgiveness with this simple condition. If the Houthis do that, no doubt Yemenis will never accept the Iranian model to be imposed on them. That will not be accepted at all. But yes, I mean, we are ready, and take in consideration Yemeni are traders, so we are trade is in our blood, so we are very good compromiser. And also our tribal system always, we reach this kind of thuluthين بثلث, always one, we reach to 1/3. So we have always this win-win, deals. Hopefully that will help. So
let me take you one final step. As you know, when I used to be the human rights chief, I think we as an office were fair. We were viewed as being hard on the coalition for the civilian casualties that accrued from the aerial bombing. But we felt we were always being fair. Is it possible to conceive of, like we see in many other post-conflict situations, where you have forgiveness as part of the makeup, you have truth-telling, so that the narratives come together and to settle it? And then, is there a space for transitional accountability, for a process whereby, in the worst cases of atrocities, and the government has accused, of course, as you've just done, the Houthis with considerable violations, and the UN has also pointed them out. But they will also say that the government, the coalition, was also responsible for some. Is there a space for transitional mechanisms of accountability? Or you think this would be premature for the time being? At the moment, let's agree to a variation of the 4-point plan, and then we'll see where to go later on.
We already started this mechanism. We have the National Yemeni Independent Commission investigating and the violence, human rights violence. I mean, now they already issued their 4th report. They started this process. It was one of the main outcomes of the national dialogue. And I think we don't have to wait. I mean, we have to always respect the human international law. We feel that the international community, the human rights, sometimes blind, so they see just the airstrikes, which is obvious, clear, but always they didn't count the daily killing by the Houthis. I mean, the snipers. If I count with you just what's happening in Taiz for 7 years, and we didn't see that at all. I mean, in the most of the human rights reports, a city under siege for 6 years. 80% of the sources, water sources, is under control of the Houthis. So people are not getting, sufficient and clean water. They are not able to get access to the rest of Yemen. I mean, the other areas. There are snipers everywhere in daily basis, not less than 2-3 kids and women killed. Yet it's not in the radar. I mean, this is one of the issues always we had. Again, well, there is history, and we, in principle, we want everyone to be held accountable for any violation against every single soul in Yemen. So this is a principle, and we want to do this. We want to see justice. But since 2018, Your Excellency, rarely you can identify a spot in any front line in Yemen that we as Yemeni government or our allies, I mean the Arab coalition, launched any military offensive campaign against the Houthis. Since we signed a Stockholm agreement, in all front lines, Houthis are the only one who are attacking, who are violating human rights, just in Marib. And this is from their media outlets. We collected information because they are proudly they published the pictures of their martyrs, shuhada. Just in Marib, from January 2020 to June 2021, 2,000 Yemeni child killed, because they sent them to the front line. So. I mean, since 2018, there are a lot of things that changed, yet we didn't see that reflected in most of the human rights reports.
Your Excellency, we deeply appreciate your taking your time to talk to us, to make your presentation. We hope you will come back again at some stage, and we hope next time we'll also be having better news to share with our audience. But I wanted, on behalf of IPI, to thank you for this discussion. And of course, we wish you and the people of Yemen all the best and the end to this nightmare of war and famine that they're experiencing.
Thank you so much, Brother Zeid. And I hope next time we will come and talk about the culture in Yemen and the beauty of old city in Sana'a. And maybe we can enjoy some Yemeni coffee together.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.